Rob here from MTU's Blackrock Castle Observatory, and today we're going to learn how to play the brand new board game Terrestrial. Terrestrial is a cooperative space-themed board game developed by MTU Blackrock Castle Observatory with funding from Research Ireland. In this game, players will try to work together to find a habitable exoplanet in a new solar system after their ship becomes stranded. So let's set up our game. Start by placing markers on each of the power cells on the outer edge of the ship. These are marked by little grey markers on the map. Here we're using 10-cent coins because they're really good markers at an A3 size. Place all of the player markers on the bridge. Each player must start on the bridge, and they really want to try and end the game on the bridge as well. Any player who's not on the bridge when the ship crash lands doesn't survive. Deal every player a crew card. These cards represent the role that the players get. Each one has special abilities and gives them certain strengths at certain challenges. Shuffle and deal 8 of the scenario cards face down. Finally, we want to deal out our planets. Each of these rows represents one of the 4 exoplanets we're trying to study and land on. They're represented by magnetometry, spectroscopy, orbital analysis, and radar. Magnetometry is searching for a magnetosphere, a shield that helps prevent from radiation. The spectroscopy is searching for oxygen in the atmosphere. The orbital analysis wants to make sure that the planet is close enough to the sun that the water remains in a liquid state, but not so close that it boils off. Equally, you don't want to be so far away that the water freezes. And mentioning water, that's the final element that you're searching for using radar.
Start a round by revealing the top scenario card. This scenario is a shared problem the whole crew must address. This challenge remains active throughout the round and will damage the ship if not addressed. Players must balance the challenge of solving scenarios with the need to analyze the exoplanets to discover if they are habitable. Each player's turn involves up to 2 actions. Here, player 1 uses a move action to enter the radar lab and an analyze action to search for water on one of the exoplanets. Using the lab for an analysis is always a level 4 science challenge. They rolled a 2. Thankfully, this player is a scientist and gets a +2 added to their science rolls, so their total score is 4. Success! They can now reveal a water card on one of the planets. The crew must compare this reading to the ship's key to see if water is present. In this case, it is. Player 2 uses Move to enter the optics bay to prepare for their next round. They use their second action to try and partially solve the scenario with a leadership roll. They roll a 5, success. Another player will need to complete a level 4 science challenge to finish solving the scenario. Player 3 uses a move action to advance 1 space towards the cargo hold. They then use their second action to finish solving the scenario with a successful science challenge roll. The scenario is now solved and doesn't pose any further threat. Finally, player 4 uses Move to enter the magnetometry bay. They attempt to use Analyze but roll a 1. They fail. At the end of each round, players must discard 1 power cell. Unless the scenario card dictates a specific cell, the crew can choose which cell to remove. In this case, they remove 1 from the cargo hold.
So that's the end of round 1, but let's advance a few rounds to see what other actions are possible.
The crew have lost half their power cells by now and have just revealed a new scenario. The third planet is looking promising. Every analysis so far has suggested the planet is habitable. If the atmosphere analysis finds oxygen, the crew can land here. Players can't enter the optics lab right now because it doesn't have power for life support, so player 1 uses their turn to reroute power from the medical bay. Player 2 can now safely enter the lab and perform the analysis. They roll a 5. Success. They can reveal the atmosphere card. It's bad news, though the atmosphere doesn't contain oxygen. It's not all over yet, though. Player 3 may be able to help by finding something useful in the cargo bay. And they have a 3-month supply of oxygen, enough to survive until help arrives. The crew can now survive on the third planet, but they must still survive all the remaining rounds. Player 4 heads to the bridge as they know there's a risk of losing power in the lab soon. They attempt an engineering roll to partially resolve the scenario, and they succeed. They've saved 1 power cell. Unfortunately, the crew loses 2 cells for the unsolved challenges, and because they lose a cell at the end of every round by default, they lose a total of 3 cells. The crew choose to take them from the science base because they're not needed anymore. This means player 1 and 2 are both in labs that just lost life support. They are injured and must spend their next turn traveling to the medical bay. So let's recap the player action options. A player's turn can have up to 2 parts. Players can skip their turn if they choose or only use 1 part. If they choose to use both parts, though, 1 part must be a move action. A player can combine 2 move actions to travel 2 spaces on a turn.
So that's most of the game mechanics covered, but let's look at a few special cards and scenarios, as well as how to finish up the game.
Sometimes the cargo hold contains real spacecraft. Once revealed, they can be used every round to attempt a bonus roll for certain science challenges. Each card has a symbol to help you remember which analysis they can perform. Here, the symbol shows that the Mars Global Explorer can be used to search for a magnetosphere. Sometimes cargo cards will help you to survive on a suboptimal planet. If all other conditions are suitable, these cargo cards can be used to compensate for a lack of water, a magnetosphere, and even oxygen. Let's discuss player cards. In addition to their skills bonuses, each player has a special ability. The card will dictate whether using the special ability requires an action. Here, the pilot can take a bonus movement action every round, so in total they can move 2 spaces and perform 1 more action if they wish. The scientist gets to repeat a spectroscopy challenge if they fail. This doesn't require an action. Finally, the engineer can recover a power cell every round, but they must use their action to do so. Let's talk about finishing the game. You must enter the final round with at least 1 power cell intact. If you survive to the end of the round, this cell is also discarded, but the crew can now land on a planet. In this example, if the crew solve the last scenario, they can proceed to land on their chosen planet. If they don't solve the scenario, they lose more power cells than they have available, and the ship crashes. The game is over. If the players end up on a planet where they haven't revealed every card, they now turn any remaining cards over. If the planet is habitable, they win. If not, they lose. Here, the atmosphere card doesn't show oxygen. The players lose. However, if they found an oxygen supply, they win, because all other conditions are suitable.
And that's it. As with any board game, the best way to learn how to play it is to just give it a try. It can seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but we're sure you'll get the hang of it. Of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at info@bco.ie and we'll be more than happy to help. Thank you for playing Terrestrial.